So Call of Duty Vanguard is coming up, and while we wait for the beta, it got me thinking, what's Call of Duty World War II like within 2021? What's it like if we went back and played right now? We've already covered Black Ops 4, we've already covered Blackout in 2021, so the next step in our retrospective series here naturally makes sense that it would be World War II. And as we wait again for Vanguard's beta, what better time than now to take a look back at what it's like today? So that said, as we go along, let me know your thoughts down below. What game would you guys like to see next in the In 2021 series? And as well, have you gone back and played Call of Duty World War II at all recently? What are your thoughts on it? If you enjoyed the video though, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Call of Duty Vanguard, Warzone, anything COD related, including retrospective looks at older games like this. If you're interested in any of that, hit the subscribe button. That said, let's take a look at Call of Duty World War II in 2021. So let's start this episode out how we do with all our retrospective videos. Let's talk a little bit about the game and the sort of player base you'll expect to see if you jump on in 2021. In terms of player count, that's not something that's really been publicized since, what, Black Ops 3 in the beta, then that was then removed, so before that even. But regardless, if it's any indication, even playing later into the nights, I was getting into games immediately, almost from just hitting queue up on whatever playlist I wanted to then a split second later being loaded into a game. That was something that it seems like the player count is still relatively decent here for a game that is a couple of years old now at this point. But when you actually get into the game, the player base itself, and who you'll be matched up against, the team balancing is more so predicated on team balancing out of the 12 to 18 players you'll have in 6v6 or 9v9 with ground war. Not really taking anything and having any matchmaking parameters that throw you up against true skill-based matchmaking or anything like that. Instead, it pulls those first 12 to 18 players closest to you and then balances it out from there. In terms of who I ended up going up against across all my games played, it was a relatively constant number of very low levels, probably players that are just picking it up for the fun of it, and a lot of players that may still be grinding it out. I saw quite a few level 1000s, and the skill level was kind of distinguishable by those relative ranks. Those that are just picking up the game, they're just the casual players, they're not going to be sweating out, but those level 1000s absolutely could be. If we're talking about playstyles that you may run into, there was absolutely a little bit of everything. Campers, rushers, snipers I feel like are what I run into the most here on this game, though I gotta say, man, sniping in World War II was tremendously, dare I say, easy. I like to think that if I can do it, it's pretty easy, but it absolutely was one of the most fun sniping experiences I've had in recent years too, so understandable. In terms of a sort of meta, I don't really think there's anything discernible. I think that you're going to have a ton of weapons that can absolutely do well. For me, the one that I came back to love tremendously was the Volkssturmgewehr, followed closely by guns like the AS-44. The MG81 was a powerhouse from when it was first introduced in Shamrock and Off, I'm not mistaken. The PPSH is obviously, of course, a classic. And then you had your things like the lever action and Delisle snipers, which I absolutely loved. Now, going back to not necessarily specialist, but something of a similar abilities by class system was that of course, the division system. Going back and playing around with the infantry, airborne, armored, mountain, expeditionary, resistance, cavalry, and commando divisions was absolutely something that took a couple of games to get used to. When you have things like having extra attachment slots, being able to move faster and fire guns while sprinting and diving, when you have those things that affect your core gameplay, it takes a little bit of time to reacclimate yourself to that and to get used to everything, whereas previously in the last couple of years, it's just all been perk related because operators haven't had anything tethered to them in terms of functionality since Black Ops 4 and the specialist ability. But once you got the hang of that, it was just right into the thick of it. Now, in terms of gameplay, gunplay, and other mechanics like that one, truthfully, I feel a little bit weird always going back now to older CODs with a handful of different reasons, but the two that always stick out to me is that I play so much Warzone anymore that going back to anything without attack sprint seems so strange to me. So going back to just like regular sprinting for the decade it was up until Modern Warfare 2019 just takes a little bit of time to get used to. Same with that 80 FOV, being locked on that, a much tighter viewpoint, absolutely took a little bit of time to get used to. And as a result, initially I was like, man, this game is so slow by comparison. Just because when you have more field of view, it feels a little bit faster when you're running. Gunplay though, man, we talk about recoil and control of that in games like Modern Warfare 2019 and Warzone and Black Ops Cold War and a little bit of what we saw with Vanguard with the alpha, but dude, These older COD games, they don't have any recoil whatsoever. So if you got a pinpoint precise shot, you can hit a snipe shot, or you can use a rifle and beam a player across the map, you're gonna do just that. And it is phenomenally satisfying when you do that. So gunplay, honestly, it felt great. When I look back at games like Call of Duty World War II, it feels more arcadey than what we've seen recently in the last couple of COD titles. And that's not a bad thing. COD has always been an arcade shooter. It's always been about running, gunning, and taking out an enemy, and just breezing through team after team. And of course, with a matchmaking system that truly was predicated on ping is king, or at least by comparison to what we have now. If you're a veteran player that had played COD even somewhat regularly for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, you're gonna mow through every single lobby. You'll be a top 3 player on your team every single game. And there was no competition with that. Going back and playing in a game where I personally don't mind competition, but going back to something like this, it was straight up easy mode. And that was tremendously fun. So if we're taking a look at Call of Duty World War II in 2021, you need a recommendation, I absolutely say go and try it out if you're looking for something to do a little differently. It's still a ton of fun. But there's a lot of things that I want to talk about here in regards to some of what Call of Duty World War II did for the game, introducing new features and things like that. But before we do, a quick little thanks to my friends over at Gamer Advantage. If you game, work on a computer, or even look at your phone for prolonged periods of time a day, chances are that you've felt some of the effects of blue light in your life. I'll swear by it. I think their glasses have helped me out most in the day-to-day out of any partner I have. They're durable, comfortable, prescription ready, and best of all, there's no visual distortion like a yellow hue in a lens that other blue light glasses companies will have. They're the best on the market, and I firmly believe that. If you want to pick up any pairs for yourself and protect your vision health, check the link in the description below and use code ESPRESSO if you pick up anything to net yourself a 10% discount on your entire order. That said, talking about World War II a little bit overall, the game itself, some of the things it offered, some of the things that were just mainstays at this point. Well, number one, we had a proper ranking system here at this. We had our traditional prestige system, 1 to 10, and then all the way up to level 1000 also if you ended up hitting Master Prestige. And one of the really cool things I thought was that you could actually prestige in front of kind of everybody. Whenever you jumped into the headquarters and went over to the general's position to end up entering prestige, you got that accolade in front of a bunch of people that saw you progress onto that next stage. And talking headquarters, honestly, I thought this was one of the coolest things that we had here in Call of Duty in a while. It wasn't something that functionally changed the game or anything like that, but it was just a cool hangout spot that you could end up going and offered just a new social aspect of Call of Duty that we hadn't seen beforehand. You had a bunch of other cool things hidden around in there as well. You had the mail station to get those armory credits, 200 every 4 hours, but if you hit Master Prestige, it was 300, and then you had your daily login bonus as well. You had the firing range, which was a great addition, and honestly, I would love to have that back so bad. To be able to test out weaponry and build for specific weapons. We have no idea if this is going to come back within Call of Duty Vanguard, but I would love to see that happen. You had mini games, you had a sort of mini air quote gulag in the 1v1 pit, the first of its kind to kind of have those bragging rights here. You had the score streak training, the air raid event, which was awesome. You had Major Howards, you had the quartermaster. There was a ton of stuff here that you could interact with and ways that you could grind out content in game. DLC, camos, and customization, there was a plenty number of them. And with each operation that was introduced here as our sort of seasonal DLC, you of course ended up getting a ton of things that came along with it. Some more than others. You had things, of course, like your Shamrock and all stuff, only introducing 13 items total, but then you had things like the Resistance event for DLC, what was that, 1? Introducing 10 different collections that you could end up going through. And that was something else entirely. Collections was a great way that you could end up grinding out things with those armory credits you ended up earning and unlocking things like calling cards, all the way up to uniforms and weapon blueprints. But here's the thing, and I'll stand by this between Modern Warfare Remastered and Call of Duty World War II. If you've been around the channel long enough, you know that I absolutely cannot stand supply drops. But I will say that of the best of a terrible situation, Modern Warfare Remastered and Call of Duty World War II made decent strides forward to try and give as much fairness to the player as possible. In Call of Duty World War II in particular, for the focus of this video, you of course had the ability to grind out things via armory credits. You had a ton of ways to get armory credits and supply drops organically through contracts, Major Howard's orders, and even those special contracts that would give you a base DLC weapon at a time, to the point where you didn't have to put any money in to get every item in the game, and it was realistic. It wasn't like Black Ops 4 where there were thousands upon thousands of items within one singular loot pool. You had the ability to end up getting what you wanted when you wanted if you had the right amount of in-game currency. I know that personally, I didn't put a single penny into World War II, and I had every single weapon up until the end of the game's life cycle unlocked. The weapons that came after World War II's main year of support, I didn't go back and focus on that when Black Ops 4 is the main game, but to me, it made the best of a terrible situation. So that to me is absolutely commendable. You had seasonal events that introduced new content, new items, new maps, new thematic changes and everything like that between maps and also the headquarters. They did some really cool things with the headquarters during all the seasonal stuff, if you ask me. You had, of course, a ton of stuff going on, but to me, I think when this game truly became a lot more fun was that overhaul that we had during April of 2018, breaking down the division system that we knew and making it a lot more accessible to a lot of different playstyles, offering ways to mix and match and not necessarily be so strict of gameplay. And at that point, that was after Condrey and Schofield ended up leaving, and from there it seemed like we ended up seeing a lot more creativity, a lot more content in the pipeline that came down to just being fun. It wasn't necessarily rooted in historical realism, which upset a lot of people, sure, but I think made even more people happy. The only downside was that it seemed to a lot of people be a little too late into the life cycle to make such drastic changes. I mean, at that point, we were 5 months into the game's life cycle, and so therefore, a lot of people had kind of either written it off or didn't come back for the full entirety of the game. But to me, that was absolutely the turning point of that game and made it much more enjoyable, much more playable at that point, and I played it up until Black Ops 4 launched. Something that traditional multiplayer, I haven't been able to do really a lot in recent years. But overall, when we take a look at Call of Duty World War II, I have some fond memories of this game. Maybe I'm a bit biased because that's when I kind of found my first step, I think, on YouTube, really finding myself as a creator and things like that. But overall, I just really enjoyed the game as a whole. Plus, it's nice that going back, this game is populated. You don't have skill-based matchmaking. You have grindable routes to content. You have a ton of customization, truth be told, by comparison to what we had at the beginning of the game and other games later in their life cycle. You had a lot of cool innovations, I think, that they tried to make World War II a standout game, and whether or not it is to you, that's entirely up to you. But again, if you're looking for something to break up the monotony of Modern Warfare, Warzone, Black Ops Cold War, and you're waiting for your time in Vanguard's beta, that's not a bad time to hop on to Call of Duty World War II. Having taken a look at this game the last couple of days, playing it here, seeing how much of a full and complete game it was by comparison to Black Ops 4, to Black Ops Cold War, and things like that, I'm excited for what may be on the horizon here with Vanguard, and of course the promise of 16 6v6 maps at launch. That's insane. But anyways, jump on if you guys are at all interested in it, but that's where we're gonna wrap it up. That's Call of Duty World War II in 2021. That said, let me know your thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like down below, and of course, if you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Vanguard, Warzone, and retrospective looks at older Call of Duty games like this one. If you also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get in touch with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those. If you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever the case may be, that link is down there in the description below. That said, thanks so much for watching. My name has been Espresso. I'll see you guys later. Take care, and peace.